you, Lee, and good evening. On behalf of the 5,000 children and their families served by our Cigar Family Community Complex in one of the most impoverished regions of the Dominican Republic, I want to thank you for joining us tonight and to thank and recognize Carlos Fuente Jr. for his vision and his humanitarian work both in the United States and in the Dominican Republic. Seeing so many of our Cigar Family members here, which have come around from around the country. And Cigar Family is inclusive. It includes anybody that enjoys cigars. They're members of our Cigar Family. They've been to the Dominican Republic many, many times. See Marvin Shank and Cigar Aficionado, who have sponsored our Cigar Family Baseball Stadium. And if you don't know, baseball is the religion of the Dominican Republic. Thank you. Thank you, Marvin. Carlos and his family are celebrating a monumental event this year. It's a celebration of the 100th year in business, certainly a rare achievement for any family company in today's changing and difficult business environment. Through many years of hard work and sacrifice and obsession with quality cigar craftsmanship, Carlos Fuente and his family are internationally acclaimed to be the finest cigar manufacturers in the world. I've known Carlito for over 40 years, first as a fellow campus cigar manufacturer, and for the last 27 years as a business partner. And with all the success that the Fuentes have had as the world's premier cigar manufacturer, in all my years I've never seen or met anyone who is as generous in spirit and in deed and with a bigger heart than my dear friend and business partner and brother, Carlos Fuente Jr. Carlos has done so much for so many. No is really not in his vocabulary. Maybe Carlos's father, Carlos Sr., said it best. That if my son were a woman, he'd always be pregnant, because he just doesn't know how to say no. And that is so true. Because if there's a need or a cause out there, you can always count on Carlito to be there and take the lead. For the last 15 years, for instance, Carlos has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for Dan Marino Foundation by putting on cigar dinners to help in their fight to find a cure for autism. Carlos also raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for St. Jude's Children's and Research Hospital in Memphis by a number of cigar events. His family last year made a major donation to St. Jude's last fall. But perhaps Carlito's greatest legacy, for which he'll be best known, is his enormous humanitarian work in the Dominican Republic. 10 years ago, Carlito and I were riding around his tobacco farm, Chateau de la Fuente, and we got talking. We'd just gone through a tremendous cigar boom, and he suggested that we ought to find some way to give back to Dominican people, thank them for making the best cigars in the world, growing the best tobacco, help make the cigar boom possible. We drove a little further and we saw some kids playing along the side of the road. And Carlito explained that they really should be in school, but the reason they weren't out there because there weren't enough schools in the Dominican Republic, certainly in this area, and those that were around were on double session. There just weren't enough schools. So Carlito suggested that we build a wing on the local school to give these kids more time to go to school, an opportunity to go to school. Drove a little further. We found some young girls carrying jugs of water on their shoulders. I said, Carlito, what's that all about? He said, you won't believe it, but all these families here, they don't have clean drinking water. They don't have any drinking water. The girls have to walk up to 2 miles from the river to carry water back to their homes, and still the water's not fit to drink. I said, Carlito, we got to fix that one too. So that was our plan. One day, Carlito met David Luther, who's floating around here somewhere, and gave David Luther, where's David? David, our gringo plan. We're a bunch of Tampa guys, gringos. Hey, we didn't know our butt from a hole in the ground. Hey, we want to build a wing on a school. We want to provide clean drinking water. And David said, you don't want to get involved with the government of the Dominican Republic. You don't want to get involved with all this bureaucracy. You want to build your own school. So with a lot of blood, sweat, and fundraising, we purchased 23 acres, and we built the Cigar Family Community Complex. Not we, it's all the Cigar Family people that have supported it for so many years. It served 5 communities, again, one of the most impoverished areas of the Dominican September 6, 2004, was the opening of our first Cigar Family School, ages pre-K through 8th grade. A great day in Cigar Family history. We had 800, the parents, the media, the politicians. It was one of the greatest days ever. It was an instant success. Everybody wanted to go to Cigar Family School. In the olden days, Carlito would travel around his tobacco farms. They'd go up to Carlito, Carlito, dinero, dinero. You know, give me the money. All of a sudden it became Carlito, Carlito, Proyecto, Proyecto. Help me get into the project, which he kind of did for so many years. But we opened up in September of 2004. About 6 months later, Carlito calls me and says, Eric, we got a problem with our school. I said, Carlito, we don't have any problem. Everybody loves us there. He says, the problem is I was cornered by a bunch of 8th graders. The nearest high school is almost an hour away by walking. They said, Mr. Fuente, it's not fair. You got a beautiful school here. We don't have any place to go to high school. If you don't give us a high school, we have to go back in the fields. We'll never go to high school. So Cleo said, Eric, you got to build a high school. He said, Carly, we don't have any money to build a high school. That doesn't matter. We'll take out a loan and build a high school. So we built a high school, came out 2005, health clinic in 2006. We had our first graduation in 2009. To raise money for our project, we started the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation, and Carlito came up with another suggestion. He said, Eric, you know how so many nonprofits, you never know where the money's going. They spend so much money on overhead and fundraising, and it really doesn't go for the people it's intended to. Why don't we contribute? Why don't we cover the overhead? So if somebody gives us $1, a dollar will go to the project. I said, Carlito, that's a great idea. Back then, the overhead was very little. Now we have attorneys and accountants and a lot of staff. Now it's a big one, but we're still doing that because of Carlito's idea. I know we're here to recognize Carlito for his humanitarian work and not talk so much about our project, but it's difficult to separate the two as they're so close to joined at the hip. But perhaps there's no better way to demonstrate what a warm and caring, unselfish individual that Carlito is than telling you about the relationship that Carlito developed with one of our Cigar Family kids. He actually saved this kid's life twice. It's a boy named Emilio. Emilio is the most vivacious, you probably heard the story. Emilio, we haven't met him, he's one of the most vivacious, personal, and charming kids you'd ever meet. Unfortunately, he was born with water on the brain, and when he was very young, doctors put a shunt in his head to relieve the swelling. A year ago, last spring, we noticed that Emilio wasn't right, and he was bloated, and he had trouble seeing. The doctors put a patch over an eye, and he thought that maybe the shunt had caused the problem, but the local doctors couldn't find the problem. That's when Carlito stepped in. In many developing countries today, like the Dominican Republic, many kids just fall through the cracks and they eventually die. Carlito didn't want to have this happen to Emilio, so he had him to get looked at and treated by the best of the best. And Carlito had been experienced. He raised a lot of money for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. He's familiar with their work. It's not easy to get people in there, but he got, through the help of Dr. Jude Barbera, got Emilio admitted into St. Jude's Hospital in Memphis. They discovered he had an inoperable tumor, gave him radiation and chemo. The tumor actually did shrink, but still there. After 4 months, Emilio came home, and St. Jude's was wonderful. Anyway, even though he still has his tumor, Emilio was doing great, back to his old self. But this past February, Carlito was doing a cigar dinner in Las Vegas, doing an event, and he got a call about Emilio. Emilio, like so many kids in these third world countries, they're raised by his grandmother in a little village, and his grandmother one day noticed that Emilio was sleeping. He didn't wake up like he normally did, and she thought maybe he was tired. But he slept in the afternoon, so she got concerned. She called the Cigar Family doctor, who took Emilio to a local hospital. What happened was Emilio fell into a deep coma. There was even a question of whether Emilio was getting enough oxygen into his brain. The hospitals in Bonao, a little hospital, didn't have the equipment or expertise. If he had been left there, Emilio would certainly have died. So Carlito, here's Carlito, 7,000 miles away, he immediately went to action. He called the #1 hospital in Santiago, told them about Emilio, and he said he wanted to have the best neurologist in the hospital take care of Emilio. They said, we're going to give you one of the best. He said, no, that's not good enough. I want the best neurologist. And they said, okay, but we'll do it, Mr. Fuente, but how's Emilio's family going to pay for it? Don't worry about that. And Carlito gets embarrassed when I talk about this, but he took care of the doctors, took care of Emilio. Next challenge was getting him to the hospital. Here he was, 50 miles away in Bonao. It's not like in the United States you call 911. There comes the ambulance. There's no ambulance. There's nothing down there. But Carlito pulled a bunch of strings. He found some people to take Emilio to the Santiago Hospital. And when he arrived there, no one gave Emilio much of a chance that he was going to make it. But he got the treatment needed. He snapped out of his coma. He's doing well today. And, Carlito was a humble and modest man. He didn't like to talk about this. But as you can see, if it wasn't for Emilio wouldn't be around today if it weren't for Carlito. Here's a picture of one of our quarterly editions of the friend he had been. We all know a lot of people in this world. Most people talk the talk. But Carlito, my friends, as you know, he really walks the walk. So please rise and join me in recognizing and honoring the 2012